our next block is Stars and Pinwheels, which is our second last block, this one down here. And there's 3 different units. So the first unit I'm going to make is a half square triangle with A1 and A2. I've got all the fabric set out as per cutting instructions, and I've drawn the lines on the back of A1. So I'm just going to take these off so I don't sew through them. And I'm going to make up the half square triangles. Remember using your trusty little Pauline Rogers half square triangle tool. Draw your 2 lines and then sew down the lines. And then we'll cut that down the middle once we've done this. Cut that down the middle and then iron them open. So you're going to end up with 4 of unit 1s. This is a unit 1. Iron it to the purple, to the darker colour. You'll end up with 4 of these, and then you cut them down to a 3.5 inch square. So just check your 45-degree angle, and that's all looking all right. I'll just cut that. So you're going to end up with 4 3.5 inch squares, half square triangles. So I've got 4 unit 1s, so they're all finished half square triangles. Now I'm going on to unit 2, which is one of these B rectangles, and you're going to make a flying geese. So we've gone through those before with the flying geese, but I'll go through it again. So I've put a line from corner to corner on the back of it. So one of the 3.5 inch squares put it up onto the right hand side of the block, pin it there so you get it nice and stable, and you sew along that white line. Take your pins out. Then you have to trim, because you want this one to go back like that to make half of your flying geese. You have to trim that back, that excess fabric on the back, so at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Iron that over. Then get your other 3 inch square, pin it in place, and you can see there's an overlap which will give you your 1/4 inch seam. Once you'll get your point with your 1/4 inch seam. Okay, then you sew it down the white line on the other side. And you want that side to go out like that, so you need to trim that excess fabric off the back and iron that back. So that is a unit 2. I need to make another 3 of these, so I'll come back to you when I finish that. So now I've finished, I've got 4 of these unit 2s, which are flying geese. And we're going to move on to unit 3, which is the C1 and C2. They're the 4 and 1/8 inch squares. So you need to put these together. I'll just use the ones I've got on the bottom because I've drawn a line on this. And we'll just make, once again, a half square triangle using the half square triangle tool. Drawn 2 white lines down the back of this, and we're going to sew it together along the white lines and cut down the middle. down the middle of that. Lining up your 1/4 inch seam on that seam line. Okay, so we need to make another 2 of those with those 2 remaining. We'll end up with 4 half square triangles, then I'll come back to you. So now I have 4 of these half square triangles and I need to trim them back to 4-inch squares. So you put your 45-degree angle on this, on the seam line, cut them back to 4-inch. Right. So now what we want to do is we want to cut these diagonally across here. So all of them we're going to cut across here. We're only going to use half of them because the orientation of the block needs to go a certain way. So this has to be in a certain spot every way. So you'll see what I mean in a minute. I'll just cut these through and then we'll place them all out in the block. Right, then you get your A3s and you cut those diagonally corner to corner. So you'll end up with 4 triangles. Right, now you're going to set it up as per diagram on the front here. So I'll just point out what I'm talking about. This block here, those particular purple and blue need to be in those spots. So if you look at it, you need to have this there. If you have the other side, you can't make it fit. It won't fit. So that one's discarded. Then you get the next one and put that there and find one where that's discarded. That goes into there, if you see what I mean. Then this one here goes there. Yep, no there. And that one's fine, but that one wouldn't fit. So we put that over there. And that one goes there. That's not going to fit, that one is. So as you can see, it makes that little pinwheel. So what we need to do now is join these together. So we're going to take it to the sewing machine, pin them well because you're sewing across bias and you don't want to stretch that bias. So just sew one block, put it back in its spot and sew the other. I'll get back to you when I'm finished doing this. So I've ironed all the seams to the green dotty fabric and I need to trim these all back to 3.5-inch squares. So getting your 45-degree angle over that seam line, cut them down. Turn it around and trim it back, 3.5-inch. Right, so now we're going to sew together that little unit to make the pinwheel. So we'll put it back in the same position as what we set it out before, just looking at your diagram. Right, so as you can see there's a little pinwheel there. This side, this one together, to the top lines, sew that together with a 1/4-inch seam. I know I'm being a bit naughty because I'm not pinning. Next line together. And you want to iron those seams opposite so they'll interlock. So I'm going to iron this one this way. the right way, yep. And this one I'll have to iron this way. That goes into there, and then we'll put them together. Make sure that you've got those nice points and you interlock that seam there. Just want to get a really nice point on that centre. That's right. So we're going to sew this. It's going to be a bit bulky there in the middle because there's lots of seams meeting. Iron it out nice and flat, and you've got those lovely points in the middle making that pinwheel. Beautiful. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually lay it out as per diagram. So if you have a look, we'll put the corners in first with the flying geese, and I have got a description of how to put it together. And then we want a flying geese on the side here, the pinwheel in the middle, flying geese on the other side, these on the corner, is that right? Yep. Flying geese, and then that one on the corner. So also line 1, line 2 and line 3, and then we'll put it together. Line 1 to line 2, line 2 to line 3. So I'll come back to you when I've done that. So that's your finished stars and pinwheels. So give it a really good iron on the back. Make sure you get everything as flat as possible. The seam lines seem to want to go that way, so I've just ironed them that way. And iron out the front well because there's a lot of pieces on here. So there's your finished stars and pinwheels, and I'm going to put that together with my wadding and backing, and I'll quilt it, and then I'll come back and show you how I gridded out the block for quilting. So now we've put it all together with the backing, the wadding and the block, and I've quilted it all, but I'll show you how I actually drew it out. Once again, I'm doing the elongated rectangles. So I've just used a 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch, and I've drawn the lines right through to here, just gone either side of all of the center seams, all of these seams. So go either side of them. And then what you do once you've finished doing all those lines, on these little corners here, because you want to make that elongated, just do a 1/2 inch on there too. So 1/2 inch out, 1/2 inch out, then it forms that elongated rectangle. In the corners, I've just done 2 little triangles, use the 1/2 once again as the guide, 1/2 inch as the guide, 1/2 inch, so you get a nice little triangle. And on this one, it's 1/2 inch from your seam, but because this has got a 1/4 inch seam included, you have to do 3/4 of an inch line, 3/4 of an inch. And on these flying geese, I've just done like an arrowhead. So 1/2 inch there, 1/2 inch there. So then I went and quilted it all, put all the elongated rectangles, and then you need to iron it. Iron it well, nice and flat. And then you'll have quite a few little thread ends sticking up, so just get your clippers out and cut all your thread ends off. There's quite a few because you have to stop and start with this one. But that is your finished Stars and Pinwheel block.